untouched wilderness, pretty much. What you see and feel out there, you put inside there and you carry it with you.
And I think we're live. Good morning. Well, good morning from us and good evening to you all over there in South Africa. My name is Scott Matheson and welcome to this webinar on moving to Australia. This is a very specific webinar, specific for our South Africans, and not only for South Africans, but for tradespeople who want to move to Australia. So it's very specific with a lot of information on how you can make the move to Australia and make Australia your home. So I've got two fantastic panelists on today. One is our Mara agent, head of immigration and working in. If I can introduce Nazim Lalazari. Nazim.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. My name's Nazim. I don't really have an Aussie accent, but I grew up in Australia and I've been a registered migration agent for quite a while. I've been with Working In now for 11 years. You can see my Mara registration right behind me. I've been helping thousands of people move to Australia, including lots of South Africans in the trades. You guys have some additional requirements that we'll go through today. So thank you for joining us here tonight or this morning.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nazim. And over in Joburg, our representative in South Africa is Anita. Anita, if you could say a few words, please. Welcome.
Yes, hi. Good evening, my fellow South Africans. Goeienaand. It's lovely to see you here all today. I've been with Working In since 2007 and just want to give you a warm welcome to tonight's webinar for us. Thank you.
And that's absolutely true. So a bit of background. I first met Anita in 2006, 2007, when Working In used to run big expos. You might have heard of them, where we as a company would bring Australian employers over to Joburg and Cape Town and run big Australian job shows. And the one that we ran in 2007, there was about 10,000 people outside. And, our employers were people like GHP, companies like GHP, BHP, Caterpillar, Rio Tinto, massive mining companies. And they're all looking for people. So we don't do the expos anymore. We prefer this format, online format, where we can bespoke and make a tailored pathway for each person. But employment is still very much a big part of what we do. But as you'll see, it's later down the track. We are Working In, that's who we've always been. But really, this is about getting your visa first. So today is all about, you're a tradesperson. There's a pathway to Australia. How do we do that? Okay, so all through this, there's going to be a free eligibility appraisal that we'll ask you to do. That's the kind of the next step. We can just see from a very quick appraisal whether you actually match the profile or meet the requirements of immigration policy in Australia. That's step one, and we'll be taking you through that. But first of all, look, I just want to touch on the Australian job market. So I'll just bring up a slide here. It's a really, really interesting time in the Australian job market now. It has been said that it is the best time in 50 years to look for a job. The labour market is so tight, and you can see there that there is skills required in every discipline, and unemployment is below 4%. So what does that mean? It means that because the borders have been closed, Australia hasn't brought people in, and also when COVID started, a lot of people left, and because a lot of people left and went back to the UK or countries of origin, New Zealand, to be with their families during COVID, it meant that a lot of people left the construction industry and the mining industry. And so this has created a real shortage. And why is that important? Well, because for most of the people that are on this webinar today, this is about the job. The job is the key to your migration pathway. So what does all that mean? Why is the job key? Do you need a job for some visas? Do you not for others? There's quite a lot going on. So I think, Nazim, maybe you can start and just take people through the two different pathways, and the one where you don't need a job, which is not what we're talking about today, and the one where you do need a job. Nazim.
So effectively, for those of you that might not know, Australia's got a lot of visa pathways and they're called subclasses. So it's got a bunch of numbers associated with it. Now, the main ways to migrating to Australia is under the independent or employer-led pathways. So on the screen, you'll be able to see the skilled migration pathways. I think that's up. And what these ones refer to primarily is ones based on points where there isn't necessarily employment assigned to them. So the first couple are based on your skills, your age, having enough points, and meeting a demand list. This is the main way that people tend to migrate to Australia. The reason for that being is that you can control that process a little bit more. By not having to rely on an offer of employment, you can control the timelines, you can make sure that once your visa is approved, you can decide when you're arriving or making the move. We get lots of questions about when do I sell my house? Please don't sell your house until you've got a visa. So it's really, really important that you understand which visa subclass you qualify for, what the requirements of that particular visa subclass are, and whether you do or don't need a job. All of that will affect, the decisions that you make in terms of which date you start, which step in that process. I think it's really, really important to understand that migration to Australia does have lots of steps, regardless of the subclass, and it's important to prepare for those. So those ones were points-based, independent. I think there was one that referred to regional employment, but that was the only one on that screen.
Yeah. Okay. So, look, it's really interesting, isn't it? So those are all points based, but we're not necessarily going for that. Before you sort of dive into the other category, I just wanted to talk to Nita a bit, because being in South Africa and being in Joburg and talking to people all the time, what is the feeling over there? Are people wanting to migrate? What's the feeling around Australia? Can you just give us a bit of a feeling and what the discussions that you're having, Anita?
Yes, certainly. So the people I'm talking to are really motivated, and their motivations comes from many reasons. And one of them is, as I've said to you before, is there's quite instability in South Africa, and people are looking for new opportunities, more secure jobs for themselves and for their wives, and to bring their families over and have a more safe and secure environment. That's one angle. The other angle is a lot of people, and especially the newer generation, are just looking for new opportunities, and they like to travel. And Australia is one of the exciting countries that they are looking at. So those are two primary reasons for people wanting to leave South Africa. One is security, and the other one is just a new lifestyle and better opportunities.
Great. Well, I think I think there are definitely opportunities there, as I just said before, and especially for these tradespeople. So, Nazim, if we can just go back to you, and actually, there's a little note up here from our administrator saying, look, if you do have any questions, put them in the question box. Most of our webinars are really big. They're very, very general. We have hundreds of people attending from all over the world, and this question box gets filled up and filled up and filled up. Because this is very specific, there's fewer people on today, it's quite intimate, so fire away, ask questions, and we'll try and help you as we go. So Nazim, people want a sense of adventure, people want to get out of South Africa for various reasons. Australia, they pay a lot of money, but it's a process. Can you just start us down that process, please?
So whether you're going the employer-led or the independent-led pathway, for the majority of the trades occupations, and for the cohort that we're talking to today, the first step is, obviously after knowing that you qualify and you do have that pathway available, is the skills assessment. A skills assessment in Australia is a specific additional step that's been created by the government to be able for multiple, authorities along the way to tick a box and say, this individual has nominated that they are a welder. They've gone through this process. We accept that they're a welder for migration purposes. And so they can use that for applying for a visa, whether that's with or without employment. Now, the skills assessment is an additional step. It does take time. And for trades occupations, it's either a 2 or a 3-step process, depending on whether or not at stage 2, you need to do a technical interview and a practical demonstration or just one. So that becomes a really, really big, important step. And what we find is that when, if we've done the free appraisal and we can see that we can, that we can help you and you do have a pathway, when we formally start the application process, there's a lot of document collection, and this becomes the key to the rest of your migration. Without a skills assessment, even with a job offer, you're potentially not moving. So that's why it becomes quite critical.
Okay, so the skill assessment is the first part of the whole process. If you're a tradie, then you'll need to do your skill assessment, and the skill assessment is a 2-part process.
Correct.
And I assume you've got to finish the first part before you can do the second part.
Yeah. You do one bit and they go, yep, you're good to go. Here's the information for you now to move on to step 2.
Yeah. And then you've got that skill assessment. So that says, yep, I am a Sparky and I've just proven that I am a Sparky. And that kind of, translates to Australian qualifications, if you like, or if you're a plumber, or if you're a carpenter, diesel tech, and joiner, and the other trades that we've got. So that's the process. Once you have your skill assessment, then what?
So once you've got your skills assessment, if you're going the independent route, you would be preparing your visa application, and if you require it, trying to get state sponsorship. Otherwise, you'd go the independent pathway. These occupations that we're talking about are eligible for migration to Australia without state sponsorship, though you might need it for points. Or alternatively, if you've got your skills assessment and you're looking to migrate to Australia under the employer-led pathway, you can now be looking to talk to employers, because there's no point speaking to an employer about, yeah, I'm going to arrive tomorrow, because even if you had the job, you can't apply for the visa until you've got the skills assessment. So it's about understanding what the end goal is and then working back to make sure that you've taken out all of the hurdles and everything that's going to stop you from being able to push ahead with that process.
Okay, so we're back to this 2 different routes. One is no job offer required, no job offer required, and the second is job offer required. So when you say independent, that means you're just going down the point system and you're trying to get in with points. Yep. Correct? Yep. And then what you're saying is that for the dependent route, which is you need a job offer, so you complete your skills assessment, you get your job offer, and then what?
And then you can apply for your visa.
Yeah, which visa?
So it's either a subclass 482, which is a like a short-term 4-year work visa for you and then also all of your family. Or in some instances, employers will, based on your job offer, sponsor you directly for permanent residence. But again, all of these require that skills assessment to be in hand and valid.
Yeah, and so in terms of that skill assessment, obviously that's the starting point. Well, the starting point is the eligibility assessment, then we know what you're about. But once you're doing that skill assessment, you've got that skill assessment, can we help people through that process?
Oh, absolutely. We do it all the time. Every now and then we find people are really excited to talk to an employer, and we'll say, why don't we just wait until we get through to stage 2 at least, so that you don't secure an offer of employment just to have it taken away because you won't be able to move through the process fast enough for the employer that was trying to fill that role. But yeah, stage 1, stage 2, all of it we can manage and submit on your behalf.
Yeah, and look, that's a really good point. And even though the job market is hot, if you're not prepared and if you don't have your skill assessment, then it's going to take so long to get that skill assessment that any employer who offers you a job, they're just not going to wait. And nor should they really. So a lot of what we're talking about is making this as frictionless as possible. Get your skill assessment, get all your ducks in a row, move up to the line. Then we can introduce you to some of our partners, our recruitment partners, who can help you find that job wherever that might be. And then you're allowed to, and then you can make that application for that 482, which is what we can help you with. So we've talked a little bit about this free appraisal, and we've got that link up there, which is the free appraisal. Once we've got the free appraisal, this is where you have the opportunity to talk to Anita, And then what she will do is just take you through the process of the full eligibility assessment, what we call your visa path. Anita, do you just want to run through, what happens there once people have filled in the free appraisal form, please?
Yes, certainly. So once you filled in that form, you will get communications from us that will ask you to access my diary. And then you will set up a 15-minute to half-hour introductory consultation with me. And really, my role here is to really understand your situation. What are your timelines? Where are you? When are you planning to move? What's your wife doing? How many children you have? So we just get a real holistic view on your situation. And then after that consultation, we will then say to you, if you're ready, please do our eligibility assessment process. It's quite easy. It's online. It doesn't take you that long, and it's seamless. And then after that is when the real value sets in. Our licensed migration agents will be writing up a comprehensive report for you. And once you've received that, we set up a 45 to an hour consultation, in our case specifically with Nasim, so you're very lucky to have her. And in that consultation, she will take you through your report step by step. And by the end of that 45-minute hour consultation, you would have absolutely clarity on all 4 steps. Do I qualify? What is the process? What is the cost? And we will talk to you about what's it like living in Australia and relocation. So you walk away with a full picture and absolute clarity of your pathway into Australia. So that's a really valuable process, and it's necessary for us to understand you and your whole family. And for that, it has a very minimum price of 3,950 Rand. You do that online and it's seamless. So I'd encourage you to set up that consultation with me, and we will have that conversation and take it from there. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Anita. Very, very clear. And I think it's so important, that first part. So the free eligibility appraisal that's online gives us just an indication. And we don't want to take you down a path if you don't qualify. So we're just going to be quite honest with you and say, listen, we don't think you meet criteria, so go away and do some more qualifications or whatever it may be. But if you look as though you meet the criteria, that's when we will give you the option to talk to Anita. And then what she will be suggesting is what she's just talked about, which is the full eligibility assessment, the detailed report. And then the report at the end of it gives you that full pathway, I guess, and that clarity that Anita's been talking about. It's your document. It's your driving document. You don't need to go anywhere else. And even if you don't use us, well, I hope you do, but if you don't, at least you've got this, and it shows you this is how I can migrate to Australia. And for most people, it's the best 4,000 Rand they've ever spent in their life, because it's just gives you so much clarity and momentum and assurance and confidence. I think confidence is huge. It's like, okay, I can migrate. I do have the skills. I do have the experience. I know how I'm going to do this. It might be very specific. It might not be the 482. It might be a regional-led visa. That might be your only pathway into Australia. But it will give you that clarity. So, Nazim, you're responsible for ensuring that your team produce those reports. You did talk about the independent route, or the one where you don't require a job. Should we just have a bit of a chat about that? Because obviously you've got the 189 and the 190, the state and the and regional as well. So can we just run through that so people are clear that if they can get through on the point system, what that might mean for them?
Absolutely. So the subclass 189 is the visa that will give you and your family the most options with the list conditions. And so the different visas as we go down the list have additional conditions or criteria that you're going to have to meet once the visa is approved. So with the subclass 189, when that visa is approved, You can live anywhere in Australia. You can do whatever you want to do as a job, regardless of the occupation that we nominated for you as part of your visa process, and you can live wherever you want. So full flexibility, welcome to Australia, happy days. The second one is the subclass 190. It has all of the same that we just spoke about. The only additional condition is that you need to live in the state that's nominated you. It's only for a couple of years, but you were granted 5 extra points by that state under that subclass. So it's like a trade. They give you 5 points, you commit to that state. Again, who you work for, what you do once you're in that state, totally up to you. As you go further down, you've got regional visas, and the regional visas require either you've got sponsorship from a state or from a regionally based employer in order to be able to migrate. Now, the regions of Australia are outside of the major cities. They're still bigger than some other places around the world, but they're regional for Australia. And you need to live and work within a specific cohort of postcodes, if you like, so certain boundaries. And after 3 years, those visas become permanent residents. So again, you get extra points, you get an alternative pathway. You know, there might be specific postcode requirement or a specific postcode and employer requirement. So as you go down the list, the end goal is still the same and the outcome is still the same, which is the permanent residence. It just means that it's a slightly different way to getting there. Oh, you're on mute, Scott.
Yeah. I like how you said that, Nazim. Like the end goal is exactly the same. Okay, so I think this is a really good example of what the eligibility assessment that Anita was just talking about will give you. It's like, okay, you think you can get points for some things, but you may not, or you think you're not going to get points, and then Nazim will find you points. And you know, she mentioned about that regional visa where you get an extra 5 points. Those extra 5 points might be the 5 points that get you to the threshold that allow you to migrate to Australia.
Regional actually gives you 15 points.
15.
State is 5.
Sorry, state's 5. Yeah. It's early in the morning. Just finished my coffee. But yeah, thank you. I mean, so I can see, so you can see how that's really important, and how that map can determine your pathway. And if you don't get that right, or if you think that you're claiming points for something that are unclaimable, and you think, oh gosh, I'm going to go and live in Victoria, whereas you can't, and then you've got to backtrack, and then you've got to spend money and time. It's really, really quite a frustrating process. So that's why this first part of the process, this eligibility assessment, is such a strong recommendation for us, especially in your situation where you have potentially 2 pathways. Wouldn't you say, Nazim?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Nazim, you know, you weren't originally from Australia, so you've migrated yourself, and I think that's really important. I'm going to bring up a picture of you to embarrass you, but maybe you could just tell people your story, because I think it's really interesting to hear your story, that you've come from, you know, from migration, but also, you know, what does it mean to you, and what should it mean to people who have migrated to Australia?
So this is a picture from 1981. My parents are those fabulous people holding the diaper bag and the white coat. So that's my mum and dad and some friends that picked us up. That's basically from the airport to the house of some friends that were going to look after us when we first arrived in Sydney. So my dad had a master's in computer science, you know, back in the late 70s, early 80s. So he was considered a skilled migrant. And that was the opportunity for our family to move from Chicago to Australia. So because of that, myself and my brothers grew up in Sydney. My brothers were born in Australia. So we're all Australian citizens. You know, my extended family now all lives in Australia, and it provided a lot of opportunity, not just for employment, but for education. And I look back at family that, you know, might live in other parts of the world, and I think I was lucky. I was able to go to Australia, and I was given a safe and encouraging environment to be able to live and grow, and, you know, and so I think it's a great place to move to.
Look, and the story is so good. And the most interesting part of that story for me is that your father got a job with IBM. And so it was job led. And, you know, the requirement for skills is constant. And, you know, the way to migrate, the easiest way to migrate is through your job and is through your skills and is through your experience and is through your qualifications. But also the other thing to remember is that migration windows open and close. And they are, the window's open right now, but it may not always be that way. What's the points at the moment, Nazim, the threshold?
So the minimum points to go into the pool for selection is 65, but the selections are happening a little bit higher because at the moment there's quite a lot of competition and everyone's doing everything they can to claim additional points. And so the way it works under the points-based visas in Australia is that everybody's ranked based on their points. So if you're a welder with 70 and there's another welder with 85, they're sitting above you, they're going to get selected first. So it's competitive in nature, and it's up to you to, I guess, get in the scrum and fight for some additional points and to get ahead.
Yeah, and find out what points you actually genuinely do have. And what points you can claim. And once again, we come back to that eligibility assessment, because, you know, that point that Nazim just made is that the threshold is 65, but they're selecting higher than 65. So just because you get 65 doesn't mean you're going to be selected at this point in time. You will need more. So you critical that you understand how many points that you have before you move forward. So I'm pretty keen now to wrap up, because it's half an hour and it's 8:30, and you know it's time for Netflix or dinner or whatever it might be. And this is just a starter. You know, you'll get the opportunity to talk to Anita and then to Nazim if you continue through on the process with us. So Anita, do you have any final thoughts for your fellow South Africans?
Yeah, I think the first thing is call me. Let's have a chat. It's encouraging to see how many skilled professionals are looking at migration. So, and as Scott and Nazim said, find out if you qualify first and foremost, and then we explain the process to you and help you down the pathway. So thank you.
Yeah, and a call can't hurt, right? That's just to establish where you are in that process, one little step. So, we have been helping thousands of people over the last 20 years. And one thing we can say is it's not a fast process. It's a process, and it's lots and lots and lots of little steps. And you got to get those little steps in the right order. So starting with as you mean to continue is imperative. Nazim, I know that you've talked a lot, but do you have any last words to say to everybody?
Yeah, just take that first step, complete the free eligibility appraisal. If we can help you, we will get in touch, and you can get some clarity on where to from here. And yeah, never met a South African who didn't want to move to Australia.
Look, one of the things that we haven't really covered off, but as always on these webinars, is the age. So I just thought, I know we're coming to the end, but look, can we just get some clarity around the age? Because obviously on the independent, it's 45, right?
Yeah, so the normal age for permanent migration is 45 years of age. There are a few age exemptions that are available for some occupations, not all, and it depends on sort of where you're going. Normally, there might be an age waiver for occupations with employment in a regional area. So part of what we do is, if you are over 45 and we say, look, we might not be able to help you because your options might be limited. If you really want, we can go and we do all the research, and we come back and we say, right, you can go here or you can go there, but you're going to have to do X and Y as well. So not as many opportunities, but sometimes there is still some.
And if I went down the 482 temporary route, that's possible?
There's no age limit on the temporary work visas. So, and the occupations that we've been talking to today, you guys are on the MLTSSL. So that means that you're able to get a 4-year visa every time. It's renewable. There's no restriction on you staying and working in Australia temporarily in perpetuity.
So for someone my age, they could get a job offer. They could potentially get a 482 4-year temporary visa. Would the employer be able to sort of get them into residency at any point along that path, or are you always going to be blocked by your age?
You're probably going to be blocked by your age unless you live in a very remote region.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So it's not impossible, but it's going to be quite challenging to get residency if you are over 45.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm glad we covered that off because it's always a question and there's a lot of ambiguity around it. Anyway, so look, thank you so much for watching this today, and please fill out that free form, and then we'll be in touch, and hopefully you'll have your chat with Anita, which will be enlightening, and we can continue to help you from there on. So good night, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.